All right, so today we're diving deep into Paris in the 1920s.
Well,
Exactly. But through Ernest Hemingway's, well, his memories of Paris,
mhm.
we're going to be exploring his memoir, A Moveable Feast.
Okay.
A really captivating look at his life as a young writer, finding his voice in the City of Lights.
Yeah, it's really fascinating because this book wasn't actually published until after Hemingway's death.
Oh, wow.
So it's like we're kind of peering into this time capsule, filled with all of his reflections
Right.
on a really pivotal period of his life. And he really portrays Paris as a period of just immense learning and growth.
Yeah,
But A Moveable Feast is a memoir,
right.
not like a strict autobiography.
Ooh.
So there is that captivating blend
Yeah.
of fact and fiction.
Right. I feel like that blend really adds this layer of intrigue.
Definitely.
But speaking of captivating, his descriptions of Paris are incredibly vivid.
Absolutely.
All these charming cafes,
Yeah.
each with their own distinct character, and
Yeah.
it really paints such a clear picture of this contrasting energy.
Between them.
And it's interesting because those cafes weren't just, places to grab a quick coffee and croissant.
Right.
These were basically Hemingway's office.
Yeah, his writing space.
His writing space, exactly. He walked everywhere, just absorbing the pulse of the city,
Mm,
especially along the Seine.
yeah.
And he befriended all these interesting people, the booksellers, fishermen,
Yeah.
drawing inspiration from their routines and their philosophies.
Right.
It's a very different picture from this kind of often glamorized view of, the so-called lost generation,
Absolutely. Yeah,
wouldn't you say?
totally. And he didn't shy away from the less glamorous aspects of Paris either.
Oh, no.
Like he mentions the Café des Amateurs,
Right.
which sounds to me more like a dive bar than this literary haven.
It was a total dive bar,
Really?
a hangout for the down and out crowd. Let's just say didn't appeal to Hemingway's senses,
No, probably not.
and out of his way to avoid it, actually.
Yeah. But contrasting that we have Shakespeare and Company.
Sylvia Beach's famous bookstore,
Absolutely.
which was really this haven for writers like Hemingway.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like Sylvia played a pretty crucial role in his early days.
I mean, she was incredibly generous to him,
Yeah.
allowing him to borrow books, even though he was really limited with his funds.
Right.
This access to basically this huge library
Yeah.
was really vital for his development as a writer.
Yeah. It makes you think about how important it is to have affordable access to all this
Absolutely.
knowledge and resources.
I mean, for anyone
yeah.
pursuing a creative path.
Right. Everyone needs that Sylvia Beach in their life.
Totally.
That person or institution that's
Yeah.
just supporting their growth without those barriers.
Mm-hmm.
But speaking of financial limitations, Hemingway is very open about his and his wife Hadley's struggles in the memoir.
Yeah.
They lived quite frugally,
They did.
even took a certain pride in their simple life.
Yeah, I mean, their frugality was a choice, right?
Right.
Consciously rejecting these materialistic values of the bourgeois,
Oh, okay.
prioritizing experiences over possessions.
That makes sense.
Remember that charming anecdote about their little picnic lunch at the racetrack?
Oh, yeah, and they won big that day, right?
Yeah,
Which makes the whole story so delightful.
definitely.
But it's interesting how Hemingway contrasts those moments of frugality with his descriptions of luxurious meals when he did have some money.
Yeah.
Seems to relish in those experiences,
Right.
almost as this reward for his disciplined lifestyle.
Yes, and it really highlights his sharp senses. He goes into such vivid detail
Yeah.
when describing the food and the drink.
Yeah.
It's like he was savoring every sensation.
Right.
Hemingway wasn't just observing life.
Yeah.
He was immersing himself in it
Yeah.
with every fiber of his being.
It makes you feel like he was so attuned to his surroundings,
And
even
totally.
in the most mundane moments.
Definitely.
But those heightened senses sometimes led him into some uncomfortable situations,
Oh, they did.
like his encounters with Gertrude Stein.
So fascinating.
Gertrude Stein, such a complex figure,
Yeah.
really played a significant role
Yeah.
in shaping Hemingway's early writing.
Hmm.
I mean, she was his mentor, right?
Yeah.
Offering him this valuable guidance and critique.
Mm-hmm.
But also, she had very strong opinions
Yeah.
about what makes good writing.
Right. She famously advised him against writing stories that were inapproachable,
Yes.
unhangable,
Mhm.
essentially. It's
Yeah.
like she felt his work was too raw, too unconventional for the established literary world.
It was a reflection of her own kind of aesthetic preferences,
Mhm.
the avant-garde style that she really championed.
Yeah.
And it raises an interesting question,
It does.
doesn't it, about artistic gatekeeping?
Mm-hmm.
Who decides what art is worthy
Right.
of recognition.
Of being hung in a gallery, so to speak.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
It wasn't all smooth sailing with Stein either.
It wasn't.
He describes this incredibly awkward moment.
Where he overheard a rather disturbing argument between her and Alice B. Toklas,
Oh, right.
leading him to distance himself from their circle.
Yeah, it's a reminder that even within this romanticized world
Right.
of Parisian artists, there were these darker undercurrents, personal struggles
Yeah.
bubbling beneath the surface.
Yeah, Hemingway doesn't shy away from revealing those complexities,
He doesn't.
which adds this layer of realism to his memoir.
He does.
And A Moveable Feast is almost like a who's who of the lost generation.
Oh, yeah.
Like you're stepping into a time machine
That's
and
right.
witnessing all these legendary figures
Right.
interacting with one another. Each encounter shedding light on Hemingway's evolving perspective on art and life.
Exactly. Take his meeting with Maddox Ford,
Okay.
for instance.
Yeah.
Larger-than-life character,
Right.
full of pronouncements about proper behavior for gentlemen,
Right.
importance of social connections.
Yeah. He even lectures Hemingway on the art of cutting social acquaintances.
Right.
It's so funny.
It is.
And kind of insightful. It's
Yeah.
like Ford was trying to mold him into a certain type of artist, someone that fit into his particular vision of the literary world.
Right.
And then we have this encounter with Pessin,
Right.
the painter,
Mm-hmm.
a brilliant artist,
Yeah.
but also known for his self-destructive tendencies.
Right.
They represent these two very different approaches to life and art.
Mm-hmm.
Pessin, consumed by his demons, and Hemingway, striving for control and discipline,
Right.
both in his life and his writing.
Definitely.
He paints a really memorable picture of Wyndham Lewis as well.
Yes.
And I was really struck by Stein's nickname for him, the measuring worm.
Interesting. What do you make of that?
Hmm.
I think it kind of hints at Lewis's tendency to analyze and imitate
Okay.
rather than create something truly original.
Right.
Like he was measuring the steps of other artists, trying to replicate their success, but perhaps missing the essence of their creative spark.
Okay, I see what you mean.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's Ezra Pound,
Oh, right.
always in the thick of things.
Definitely.
Remember that whole Bellis Brie campaign?
Yeah.
He launched to free T.S. Eliot from his banking job so he could focus on poetry.
Noble effort, no doubt.
Right.
But it also highlights the challenges
Yeah.
faced by artists, right?
Yeah.
Trying to balance their creative pursuits with, the practicalities of life.
It wouldn't be a Hemingway anecdote without a touch of humor, though.
Of course not.
He admits to, let's say, redirecting some of those funds for a wager on the horses.
Classic Hemingway.
Right. It's fascinating how he was surrounded by this whirlwind of brilliant, slawed individuals
Right.
observing their successes,
Yeah.
their failures absorbing it all.
And those observations, no doubt, shaped his own artistic development,
Right.
learning as much from their lives
Yeah.
as he was from the books he devoured at Sylvia Beach's bookstore.
Totally. Like he was piecing together his own philosophy of life and art
Right.
from these encounters.
And then, of course, there's his complex friendship
Yeah.
with F. Scott Fitzgerald.
Right.
Another layer of this whole dynamic.
Right. Fitzgerald was already a successful writer at that point.
He was.
But sounds like he was deeply insecure about his talent.
Yeah, and really grappling with the tension
Yeah.
between artistic integrity
Right.
and the financial realities of being a writer.
Right. He even confessed to whoring his stories
He did.
for magazine sales.
Stark admission.
It is, but it speaks to the struggle I think many artists face
Definitely.
when trying to stay true to their vision while also needing to, earn a living.
Right.
And their first meeting was, well, a little awkward,
It was.
to say the least.
Yeah.
Fitzgerald showers Hemingway with all this effusive praise.
Yeah.
And then promptly gets sick.
Oh.
Not exactly the smoothest start to a friendship.
No, not at all. But it's almost comical.
It is.
But also reveals Fitzgerald's anxieties.
Oh, right.
His struggles with his health.
Yeah.
Which would sadly become more pronounced later in his life.
Right.
It's fascinating
Yeah.
how Hemingway, through his seemingly straightforward prose, subtly reveals those vulnerabilities
Right.
without explicit commentary.
Yeah.
It's like an iceberg.
Okay.
The reader senses this much deeper story
Right.
beneath the surface.
Right. Speaking of icebergs, their disastrous trip to Lyme together
Oh, yeah.
is a whole other level of awkward.
It is.
Can you imagine being stuck in a car with someone like Fitzgerald?
I can't.
Consumed by hypochondria, fueled by alcohol, and constantly on the phone with Zelda?
It's almost a microcosm
Wow.
of Fitzgerald's unraveling personal life.
Yeah.
It's chaotic,
Yeah.
humorous, but ultimately
Yeah.
tragic journey.
It is. It makes you wonder how Hemingway navigated that whole dynamic,
Yeah.
observing his friends' decline while also trying to maintain their connection.
Right. Which brings us to Zelda,
Yeah.
a figure who adds even more complexity to
Right.
this whole story.
Their lunch with Scott and Zelda was particularly uncomfortable,
Oh, yeah?
especially Zelda's flippant comment
Right.
about Al Jolson being greater than Jesus.
On the surface, it seems like a throwaway remark.
Right.
But within the context of Zelda's, increasingly erratic behavior,
Right.
it hints at something darker,
Yeah.
a sign of her growing instability,
Yeah.
which would tragically impact Fitzgerald
Yeah.
deeply.
It would.
Hemingway the astute observer,
Yeah.
picks up on those nuances.
He does. He notes the destructive nature of their relationship,
Yeah.
sensing the underlying tension and the potential for heartbreak.
Right, and it's almost heartbreaking,
Yeah.
knowing what would eventually unfold
Yeah.
for the Fitzgeralds.
Yeah, and the fact that their story ends with Fitzgerald desperately asking Hemingway for romantic advice
Yeah.
adds another layer of poignancy.
It does. That leads to one of Hemingway's most famous observations. I think speaks volumes about his approach to relationships.
Okay.
Never go on trips with anyone you do not love.
Wow.
Wise words,
They are.
especially coming from someone who witnessed the complexities
Right.
of the Fitzgeralds' relationship firsthand.
Right. Wise words, hard learned for sure.
Definitely.
Seems like after all that intensity, Hemingway needed an escape.
He did.
Which brings us to the Austrian mountains,
Right.
a place that offered him a different kind of inspiration.
Exactly. He found solace and rejuvenation in shrubs,
Hmm.
embracing the simplicity of life in the mountains,
Yeah.
his love for skiing, and the stark beauty of the
Oh.
snow-covered landscapes.
Yeah. A world far removed from the social whirl of Paris.
Absolutely.
A place where he could reconnect with nature and himself.
Hmm.
He paints a stunning picture of life in Shrunz.
He does.
The cozy and the challenging, climbs the camaraderie with fellow skiers.
Yeah.
But then there are these chilling details about avalanches. Especially the story of the man found with his neck worn through from turning his head against the snow.
Wow.
It's such a stark contrast
It is.
to the idyllic descriptions of the mountains.
That image really struck me too.
Yeah.
It speaks to Hemingway's awareness of nature's power
Mm-hmm.
and indifference,
Yeah.
a theme that echoes throughout his work.
Right.
But it also suggests a connection to the resilience and acceptance that he was cultivating, both as a writer and as a man,
Yeah.
navigating the complexities of life.
It's like he found a different kind of truth in those mountains.
Right.
This rawness that echoed the truth he was striving for in his writing.
Mm-hmm.
But even this escape couldn't last forever.
Hadley, no.
The arrival of the rich, as Hemingway calls them,
Right.
marked a shift in the atmosphere
Yeah.
and perhaps a turning point in his own outlook.
Yes, the influx of wealth and superficiality.
Right.
The pilot fish who followed in their wake.
Yeah.
They disrupted the peace
Mhm.
Hemingway had found in Shrunz.
Yeah. And it seems to represent a loss of innocence,
It does.
both for him personally
Mm-hmm.
and for the idyllic world he had discovered in the mountains.
Right, there's a sense of foreboding in his description.
Yeah.
Like he's sensing the end of an era,
Right.
the inevitable intrusion
Yeah.
of external forces
Right.
that would change everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, it's almost as though the arrival of all this wealth in Shrunz foreshadows a change in Hemingway himself, a shift away from that kind of purity and simplicity that he found there.
Yeah. I get that feeling too. And it's interesting how throughout the memoir,
Mm-hmm.
you see this evolution in his writing style.
Yeah.
He's very deliberate
Right.
about his craft,
Mm-hmm.
stripping away anything unnecessary,
Right.
focusing on just conveying the essence of a scene, a
Mm-hmm.
feeling,
Mm-hmm.
with the most direct language possible.
That's a great observation. He was consciously moving away
Yeah.
from that kind of ornate, flowery prose
Yeah.
that was really popular at the time,
Or-
moving towards this more minimalist,
Right.
hard-hitting style
Yeah.
that would become his signature.
Totally.
He believed that writing should be like an iceberg,
Oh, yeah.
with most of its weight and meaning hidden beneath the surface.
That iceberg analogy is so fitting.
Isn't it?
It explains why his writing is so powerful.
Mm.
It's not just about the words on the page,
Right.
but it's also about what's left unsaid,
Exactly.
the emotions that simmer beneath the surface.
He called it the theory of omission, a
Hmm.
technique that requires a lot of trust in the reader
Right.
to connect the dots, to feel those unspoken emotions.
Right.
But when it works, it creates this incredibly powerful and lasting impact.
Exactly. You're not simply reading his words. You're experiencing the emotions, the
That's right.
atmosphere, the unspoken tension between the lines.
Totally. And that brings us back to his descriptions of Paris.
Yeah.
It's not just a backdrop.
Right.
In his
It's really
story,
a character itself.
it is a complex and contradictory character.
Right. And he captures the city's duality so beautifully.
He got.
You know, we see charring cafes,
Yeah.
the vibrant heart scene, but also the poverty, the grit, and this underlying sense of disillusionment
Right.
that permeated the lost generation.
Totally.
He doesn't shy away from that darkness, does he?
He does not.
It's like one minute he's describing this romantic walk along the Seine, and the next he's detailing the less than savory clientele of the Café des Amateurs.
Yeah, like he's fascinated by those contrasting elements.
Yeah.
The beauty and the ugliness, the light and the shadow.
Yeah, I think he was really drawn to that rawness, to the authenticity of those experiences.
Yeah.
Both the positive and the negative.
That's a hallmark of his writing.
Yeah.
This desire to portray life as it truly is.
Right.
Without romanticizing or sugarcoating the difficult parts.
Exactly. And that rawness is reflected in his portrayal of the people he encountered in Paris. You know, those encounters, especially with figures like Stein and Fitzgerald, seem to have had such a profound impact on him.
They did?
Shaping not only his writing, but also his worldview.
Right. He wasn't just observing those interactions.
Yes.
He was absorbing them.
Yeah.
Learning from their triumphs and their mistakes, their joys and their sorrows.
Yeah. It's like he was piecing together his own philosophy of life and art from those encounters.
Definitely.
And I'm struck by how he portrays Fitzgerald.
Yeah.
A man wrestling with his demons, his insecurities, the pressure of success. It's such a poignant and, at times, heartbreaking portrait.
What's interesting is that Hemingway manages to convey that depth of emotion without being overly sentimental or melodramatic.
Yeah.
He reveals Fitzgerald's vulnerabilities through these subtle observations, almost like a journalist recording the facts.
Yeah.
But those facts are imbued with this deep understanding of the human condition.
It's that understated power.
That makes his writing so compelling.
Right.
You feel the weight of those emotions.
Yeah.
But he doesn't force you to feel a certain way.
Right. He trusts the reader to draw their own conclusions.
Exactly.
He believed that true art should evoke emotion, not dictate it. And he was constantly experimenting with his craft.
Right.
Pushing the boundaries of language and form.
Yeah.
To achieve that evocative power.
And speaking of pushing boundaries, his relationship with Gertrude Stein was clearly a catalyst for his development.
It was.
Her influence is undeniable.
Yeah.
But it also seems like he was struggling to find his own voice within the shadow of her mentorship.
Their dynamic was both inspiring and challenging.
Yeah.
She provided him with this valuable guidance.
Right.
Introduced him to key figures in the literary world.
Right.
But she also had a very strong personality.
She did.
And very specific ideas about what art should be.
That inapproachable comment really stuck with me.
Yeah. It's almost like she was trying to fit him into a certain mold. A mold that ultimately didn't align with his vision.
Right, that tension, that push and pull between finding your own voice and navigating the expectations of mentors and the literary establishment. It's something that I think many artists can relate to.
For sure.
And Hemingway's willingness to eventually break free from Stein's influence speaks to his courage and determination to forge his own path.
He did.
Which ultimately he did.
Yeah.
Creating a style that was undeniably his own.
Right. And it's interesting how all of his experiences in Paris, the highs, the lows, the beauty and the darkness, all seem to feed into his writing.
Yeah.
Shaping his themes, his characters, the very essence of his prose.
He wasn't afraid to explore those contrasting elements.
Right.
Those difficult truths about life, about human nature.
Yeah.
And in doing so, he created a body of work that is both timeless and deeply resonant.
I agree.
It's a testament to his honesty, his courage,
and
his relentless pursuit of authenticity.
I think that's what resonates most with me is the sense of authenticity. He wasn't trying to please anyone or fit into any preconceived notions of what a writer should be. He was simply trying to capture life as he saw it, as he experienced it, with all its beauty and brutality.
And that commitment to honesty, to capturing the essence of human experience. That's what makes A Moveable Feast such a captivating read.
It's not just a memoir. It's a reflection on life, on art, and on the transformative power of embracing those moments that shape us, for better or for worse.
Exactly.
You're right. It's a reminder that life is a journey, a collection of experiences both joyful and painful, that mold us into who we are.
Totally.
And perhaps the most important thing is to be present for those moments. To absorb them fully and to allow them to inform our art, our relationships, our understanding of the world.
Totally.
Just like Hemingway did in Paris.
And that brings us to a key question, doesn't it?
It does.
What was it about Paris that made it such a fertile ground for Hemingway's artistic growth?
Was it simply the place, the time, or something more profound? That's a question I've been pondering as well. What do you think?
Well, it's a multifaceted question, isn't it? I think Paris, especially during the 1920s, offered this really unique blend of creative energy and intellectual freedom. It was this melting pot of artists and writers and thinkers, all challenging these conventions and pushing the boundaries of their respective fields.
Yeah, Hemingway was definitely drawn to that energy, that sense of possibility.
He was.
But it also seems like he found something deeper in Paris, the sense of connection, a feeling of belonging that he hadn't experienced elsewhere.
You pick up on that too.
I do.
It's almost as though the city itself became this muse for him, this source of inspiration that fueled his writing and his personal growth.
Yeah, remember that beautiful passage where he describes Paris as a movable feast?
Oh, yes.
It's such a perfect line.
It
captures the essence of the book so perfectly. It's not just about the food, the wine, or even these physical experiences. It's about the intangible things. The memories, the emotions, the lessons learned that stay with you long after you've left a place.
And that's what makes the title so powerful.
It
suggests that our most meaningful experiences are feasts.
Yeah.
They're not static or fixed in time. They're carried within us, shaping our perspectives and enriching our lives wherever we go.
Which makes me wonder, what about the less pleasant experiences? The heartbreaks, the disappointments, the failures. Do those become a part of our movable feast as well? Do they shape us just as profoundly as the joyous moments?
That's a really thought-provoking question.
Yeah.
I think Hemingway would argue that those darker moments are just as integral to our personal narratives.
Yeah.
I mean, he doesn't shy away.
He doesn't.
From the difficult aspects of his time in Paris. He writes about poverty, addiction, the destructive nature of some relationships. He even describes this rather unsettling encounter with a man who seemed to be on the verge of suicide.
That's right. He doesn't present a romanticized or idealized version of Paris at all.
No, he doesn't.
He acknowledges the shadows, the struggles, the darker side of human nature that coexists. Alongside the beauty and the brilliance.
And perhaps that's the ultimate message of A Moveable Feast. That life is this tapestry woven from both light and dark threads. It's in those contrasts, in those complexities that we find our humanity, our resilience, and our capacity for growth.
It's a reminder that our personal feasts aren't always filled with delicacies and champagne.
That's right.
Sometimes we have to savor the bitter bites as well. You know, the moments that challenge us, that break us down, but ultimately make us stronger.
And maybe those bitter bites are what give our feasts their depth, their richness, their staying power. They remind us that life isn't this linear path towards happiness, but rather this cyclical journey of growth and transformation.
I think that's a powerful takeaway. And it speaks to Hemingway's own journey as a writer. You know, he wasn't afraid to delve into those darker spaces, to explore the complexities of human emotion and experience. And in doing so, he created a body of work that continues to resonate with readers generations later.
Absolutely. His willingness to confront those difficult truths, to embrace the full spectrum of human experience. That's what makes his writing so authentic and enduring.
Yeah. So as we wrap up this deep dive, I'm curious to hear your final thoughts. What is it about A Moveable Feast that continues to captivate readers? Why do you think this memoir, written decades ago, still speaks to us today?
You know, for me, it's the honesty. The vulnerability and these timeless themes that Hemingway explores. It's a story about finding your voice, about navigating the challenges of creative pursuits, about the transformative power of relationships and experiences, both good and bad. It's a reminder that life is a journey, a constant evolution, and that even the most ordinary moments can hold this extraordinary meaning.
And that's a beautiful sentiment to leave our listeners with.
It is.
A reminder to savor those moments, those movable feasts that enrich our lives. To embrace the complexities of our journeys and to find beauty and meaning in the tapestry of our experiences.
Beautifully said. And remember, as Hemingway himself wrote, we are what we remember we were. So cherish those memories, those feasts, and allow them to shape the stories you tell and the lives you lead.
Thank you for joining us on this exploration of A Moveable Feast.
It's been a pleasure.
We hope you found it insightful and thought-provoking. Until next time, keep exploring, keep creating, and keep feasting on the richness of life.